And welcome to our program and conversation today. Southwestern PA welcomes Afghan refugees and other vulnerable migrants. On behalf of the Immigration Working Group of the Southwestern Pennsylvania Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, I'd like to thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Ross Carmichael. I am a member of the Immigration Working Group, and I serve as pastor of St. Andrew Lutheran Church in Shadyside. I'll be providing introductions and brief announcements throughout our time together today. We have all likely seen the heartbreaking images from Afghanistan in August and heard the troubling news about events there in recent months. And we know that due to the situation there, a great number of Afghan evacuees are coming to the U.S. Many organizations, including our church-related affiliate, Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, have been mobilizing to help welcome and resettle those coming from Afghanistan, often with special immigrant visas or parolee status. Today, we look forward to learning more about that process and learning about ways that we can support these efforts. The worldwide picture of migration, though, is even more widely varied, and the reasons for it are, of course, complex and diverse, with people continually being displaced due to conflict, war, economic reasons, climate change, natural disasters, and so much else. Amid all this, we seek to answer the call to provide a warm welcome and generous hospitality for people from all over the world who are now our local neighbors. We appreciate your interest and desire to support our neighbors from Afghanistan and so many other places who have come to Pittsburgh as immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. On that note, I am pleased that joining us today are representatives from Jewish Family and Community Services and its Refugee and Immigrant Services Division, which, of course, as the name suggests, provides services and support to refugees and immigrants so that they may thrive in our local communities. And I'm also pleased to welcome those from Casa San Jose, Latino Immigrant Resource Center in Beachview, a community outreach that was begun by the Sisters of St. Joseph. Casa San Jose, which has expanded to additional offices in East Liberty, Ambridge, and other areas outside the city, provides services to children, youth, and families, helping them acclimate to their new homes in the Pittsburgh area and providing a place of welcome. Both of these organizations are doing amazing work and providing invaluable services to people new to our communities. We'll also briefly highlight today a few other local organizations that are working to help resettle migrant neighbors, including Bethany Christian Services, which has a new agreement with Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, and Hello Neighbor. At the conclusion of our time, we will have a question and answer session, and we will share ways that you can get involved in local efforts to support our neighbors. I have a few brief practical announcements before we begin. Throughout the event, we will have everyone except for the speakers on mute, but please feel free to type your questions into the chat. Susan Smith of our Southwestern Pennsylvania Synod Immigration Working Group will monitor the questions and bring them before our speakers as we are able at the designated times. We are also going to attempt to record this event, so if all goes well, we will have it available to send to participants later. We'll begin our time together with a presentation by Reverend Linda Theophilus, pastor of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Eastmont and a leader of the Southwestern Pennsylvania Synod's Immigration Working Group, who will speak to us about sacred stories and modern definitions around migration.
Good morning. Good to see you all and to share this time with you. As we learn new stories, and we will be hearing new stories of migrants who are currently seeking shelter and safety around the world, especially coming here to Pittsburgh. It's often helpful to use the stories we already know to help us understand the definitions and what we're hearing about our new neighbors. So I'd like you to think, what are the stories you already know, especially from the sacred texts that are part of your life, or perhaps from the heritage of your family or the groups you're a part of? And as you think of those stories of people who've moved from one place to another, crossing borders, very likely those stories parallel what's happening now. Perhaps some of the stories that are coming to your mind would be people like Abraham or Joseph, who was trafficked by his brothers and went to Egypt. Or perhaps Joseph's own family that later came to Egypt because there was a drought. Let's see if you've thought of some of the same stories as I. I'm going to share my screen and let you see some of these references, stories that I've thought of. When you think of the story of Abraham and Sarah, and their stories are told in the Jewish Old Testament as well as in the Muslim Quran, they fit the category of economic migrants, people who travel from one place to another to start a new business, to make a new life. In the United States today, there are economic migrants who have come in on visas, but many economic migrants do not come on visas. You can only get a visa if you are invited by a particular business. Folks like Abraham and Sarah probably could not have just picked up and moved to the US to start a new life. Although with the significant riches he had, perhaps that might be an exception. Those exceptions do exist in American immigration law. Joseph, one of 12 brothers, had irritated his brothers and they sold him, and then he was carried off against his will to another place. Again, in the Christian Old Testament and in the Quran, we have an example of today what we would call human trafficking. Jacob and his sons, Joseph being one of them, when there was a drought across the whole Middle East, they needed to go get food. And because Joseph had connections, his family was able to move. Today we might call them climate refugees, people who have to move because, well, the weather has changed in ways that have made it impossible to grow crops and take care of families where they are. There is the story of the baby Jesus, was one of a group, children under the age of 2, especially boys, that King Herod wanted to kill. Threats to his throne. But anyway, Jesus was part of a group that was in danger. And off his family went. They escaped because they got to Egypt. They crossed a border where Herod no longer could reach them. Refugees today, we have a definition that they are people who have fled to another country for reasons of race, political association, religion, ethnic group, member of any other group. For those who, like Mary and Joseph and Jesus, there's no opportunity to get travel documents or permission to enter another country. They pick up in the middle of the night and off they go. And they become almost perfect examples, fitting the definition amazingly well of asylum seekers, of those who flee and hope that they'll be received where they end up. In a minute, I'll be sharing a story about some Muslims who moved to Ethiopia, examples of religious refugees. If you know the story of Ruth, again shared by Jews and Christians, it's a story both of migrants who left Bethlehem because there was no food there and crossed the border, and were then able to stay for a while. But then Naomi, the mother of the family, wanted to go back home. And all that was left was Ruth and her daughters-in-law. I'm sorry, Naomi and her daughters-in-law. And Ruth is the one that said, I'm coming with you no matter what. So mother-in-law and daughter-in-law return to the mother-in-law's home It's a story of a native-born person bringing in someone who's become part of their family. We have lots of folks, citizens and lawful permanent residents, who want to bring family members to the United States. Some come relatively easily, although there's nothing easy about getting permission, getting a visa. There are all kinds of ways that can go awry. But in the case of Naomi and Ruth, there's no way that Naomi could have brought a daughter-in-law under current American immigration law. There are certain categories of family where that's just not possible. The Babylonian deportation, when Jews were sent without their will, but the Assyrians had conquered their land, their city, and then a large number were forced to move to Babylon. We find so many parallels around the world. But these are some of the stories that you may know. And I wish we could be a little more interactive, because you probably have stories to tell. You're thinking of people whose stories are examples of what it means to be a migrant today. And when we think of those stories and then put them with American immigration law or just modern immigration law, suddenly they seem, well, familiar. Neighbors, friends. In early Muslim history, there are 3 migrations that are considered very important. And one of them, and I retell this story from Zeki Zaratoprak's retelling of migrations. Some new converts who were facing severe persecution were having a very difficult life in Mecca. And the Prophet Muhammad, realizing their painful situation, asked them to migrate to Abyssinia, the old name for Ethiopia. Therefore, this migration was made at the request of the Prophet, although he himself did not go. And when they reached Abyssinia, there was momentarily a question whether they'd be able to stay. But there they arrived, approximately 617 Common Era, about 83 members of the Muhammad's family, male and female, under the leadership of the Prophet's cousin. After several conversations with the Abyssinian king, Negus, and his religious advisors, convinced of the immigrants' innocence, the king refused to return them to the Meccans. And this is a story which is well known and important story in the Quran. An early example of religious persecution, one of the 5 categories in modern immigration law, American and global, in the definition of a refugee. I'm going to very quickly give us some names and a little bit of information about different visa categories, travel categories that exist. Once you get acquainted with immigration law and categories, some of these distinctions, well, they have a logic to them, but they are not necessarily following general definitions, just general language definitions. A migrant is anyone who travels. An immigrant is one who enters, and an emigrant, EM, is one who leaves. But in immigration law, there are visas that are called non-immigrant visas. They have a time limit on them. Some are familiar, like a tourist. Student is another well-known category, has a time limit to it. It only applies while you're an enrolled student. Temporary protected status is very important for vulnerable migrants today. What it means is, if you're in the United States, for example, while there's an earthquake in your country or an overthrow of your government, if the United States government identifies that it's not safe for you to return home, not safe for generally people to return back to that country, your country, you can get a temporary protected status. Of course, there's applications to that, but it's always time linked. So people from Liberia, for example, have lived through getting allowance to stay in the United States and to work in the United States for a certain number of years. And then the anxiety of, will that be some of the countries, not all, but some of the countries where there's temporary protected status, or for whom there's temporary protected status, include Haitians, Nicaraguans, Liberia. I didn't look up the list of countries, but that ability to stay and work in the United States is controlled by the Department of Homeland Security and others who work in this realm. Many work visas also have a time limit on them. Some are linked with the job, that particular employer. If that employment ends, that visa ends. And the only way to remain in the United States legally is to get another job with another employer that will be the sponsor. Or perhaps if you get married to an American citizen, that might open up a new category. I've talked with folks who are desperate to stay in the United States for many good reasons, but they are not able to remain if they cannot get a visa sponsored through another employer. You cannot adjust from a non-immigrant visa to a lawful permanent resident status. You cannot adjust. Over the last 25 years, those who study migration have estimated that 40% of unauthorized US residents entered with a visa and stayed after it expired. That says something about people's desire to be here, but also about the limited ways that exist to be able to remain in the United States with permission, with authorization. Immigrant visas don't have a time limit on them, although they do have to be renewed. I have a friend whose husband, a hockey player, lost his status, and because the form to renew the permission hadn't been filled out properly. Lawful permanent residents, also known as green card holders, are non-citizens. They're authorized to live permanently within the United States. This is a definition that comes right off of the Homeland Security website. Legal permanent residents, there was a time when legal permanent residents said, well, it's like being a citizen, except I can't vote. It's actually not that secure. And there are people who, for a misdemeanor, have been deported, lost their status, and been deported. There are 4 basic ways to become a lawful permanent resident. They are family reunification, like Ruth, a refugee, like Mary, Jesus, and Joseph, and so many other folks in our sacred stories. We have so many examples of people, whether Sikh, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Baha'i, have had to flee because of their identity as a follower of that faith. There are also some specific work visas, and then something called a diversity visa lottery. Most of these have limited number allowed per year and limits per country. And so we have the reality that there are people, brothers and sisters in particular, who are waiting 20 or more years to get permission to get a visa, a family visa, to enter the United States. While there are no quotas on spouses or minor children of citizens, everything else has quotas. And some kinds of relatives do not qualify. We already named Ruth. Grandparents, grandchildren. This is a particular problem if the spouse the parent that's a citizen has died. What if the grandparents have been caring for children and the son or daughter who is the parent dies? These children may not have any legal way of remaining with the grandparents who have become their caretakers, their family, their life here. Again, employment, but it's a very limited quota, and it's always expired within days of when the applications can come in. Diversity lottery, it's kind of what it sounds like. And a limited number of people from around the world are selected every year from countries that don't normally have many people coming to the United States. And then there are a few special categories for people with $1 million or extraordinary talent, victims of certain crimes like trafficking or those who turn evidence. Special immigrant visa is really important for our Afghan allies. And perhaps you've heard about a 90-day fiancé visa. There are TV shows about that. So here's again a definition of refugees. A person outside his or her country of nationality who is unable or unwilling to return to his or her country of nationality because of persecution or well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. An asylee is a person who meets the definition of refugee and is already present in the United States or seeking admission at a port of entry. Refugees are required to apply for lawful permanent resident green card status 1 year after being admitted, and asylees may apply for green card status 1 year after their grant of asylum. Refugees who apply, who are registered with the UNHCR, United Nations High Commission on Refugees, and work through a very exhaustive screening process. When they arrive in the United States, they have immediate work authorization. The process usually takes 2 years, although people often wait 5 to 10 years before being able to enter the US screening process. There are many people for whom this is not an option. And they find their own way to a country of safety. They cannot just choose any country in the world, but many try to get to the United States. Asylum seekers make that application when they enter the US. But you cannot apply without presenting yourself at a border or being within the United States. And I'm always stressing, and perhaps you know this very, very well, that those who do not have a visa to enter the United States, the only legal way to make the application for asylum is to set foot in the United States. That's the legal way to apply for asylum, to ask for recognition that you truly are a refugee. And then they enter a legal process. If you enter with a visa or without a visa and declare to Border Patrol that you are intending to apply for asylum, The current practice is that that person or family are taken to immigration detention and begin this process while in prison. How long in prison? It varies, but there are folks who have spent years in prison, others 30 days, or perhaps even only a week, either held by Border Patrol or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Did you hear what I said? If you enter with the visa and you're going through customs inspection and you say that you are applying for asylum, then you're also taken to immigration detention. That's with a visa. Now, if you enter with a visa and apply after coming through the border, then you will not be detained. Today, there are people who are waiting 3 and 5 years to get an answer for their application asylum or their application for asylum. Refugees have work authorization when they arrive. Asylum seekers do not. And approximately 6 months after submitting their application, then they can get work authorization. There's an application for work authorization, and then you wait to get approved. There are families my congregation has helped that got the approval fairly quickly, but then there's the process of getting hired. It can easily take a year or more after submitting an asylum application before someone is actually able to earn enough money or to even have a legal job that will allow them to care for their families. Asylum seekers, along with economic migrants for whom there is no line to get in, to get legal status in the United States, find themselves working under the table, often very entrepreneurial, but no security and limited legal protections. For some asylum seekers, working under the table is not an option. That's a risk that could create a problem in their asylum application, in their likelihood of being approved. When we talk about our Afghanis who are being admitted to the United States because of their need and because they've been working with American allies, right now, some of what we're talking about is humanitarian parole, because there hasn't been time for all these bureaucratic and legal processes to be worked through. So humanitarian parole in this case means that they've been admitted to the United States, but they're undergoing screenings and processing. So there are numerous military bases around the country where there are several thousand Afghanis who are entering this process. Little by little, they're beginning to come to be released and sent to places where there's family, refugee agencies who will work with them, and Americans who want to honor them. You've heard of this term, special immigrant visa. It's one of the visas that does exist, a special category, for those who have worked for at least 1 year as translators or interpreters, or who were employed by or on behalf of the US government in Afghanistan. One of the problems you may have heard far too much about is that the bureaucratic process of getting screenings and getting your turn in the queue and the line of applicants, it just took too long. And so folks are stranded who had already applied for a visa to come to the United States. The statistics on the screen go with fiscal year 2020. So we're past that. But we've been receiving SIVs little by little, but there are so many more who qualify for this, as well as others who won't get in this particular line, but they qualify for humanitarian parole. They may end up becoming asylum applicants. The good thing about the SIVs is that the United States legislature has approved that they'll get the same benefits as someone who enters as an acknowledged refugee. So there's 3 months of funding for their living expenses and access to medical care. But you'll hear more about that soon. I'm going to stop now, and perhaps there are questions. In fact, I see questions already showing up in the chat.
So the first question is related to the Afghanis you were just talking about. Why have the Afghan refugees been given temporary protected status versus permanent green card status? They may never be able to return to their home. So I think we get into some of those complicating terms. So if you could maybe talk a little about that.
Sure, absolutely. To my knowledge, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe there's been any temporary protected status declared for Afghanis. And this would be something for folks who have already in the United States before the government changed and the Taliban took control of the government. This is something that folks in that situation may genuinely need. I don't know whether that's been set in place for Afghanis who were already in the United States when the change of government came. So the categories that are the Afghanis are entering with either under humanitarian parole, SIVs, or some actually doing the asylum application. Those will all put them in line if they're approved to stay and get into the lawful permanent resident category.
Okay, the next question has to do with the people that are here on work visas. How can employers find employees on work visas that to find a new employer to extend their stay?
A lot of what really happens is that the person who's looking for a job makes the application, and then the employer has to decide if they want to invest the time and money to work through the visa process. Locally, one of the organizations that somebody could reach out to is Jewish Family and Community Service. And they're not the only one, but among our different programs that work with immigrants, working with people regarding employment is very important. So that's a possibility. An employer could reach out to JFCS or Casa San Jose, or I'm trying to think who else is doing workplace work. We could raise that question again when Yvonne Smith-Tapia is with us.
Okay, can legislators change the status from special visas to permanent status by vote?
I'm sure that's legislatively possible. And the special visas, most of the special visas, and for most of the special visas, and I listed a variety of categories, that does put one in line to become a lawful permanent resident and indefinite permission to stay in the United States. But let me give you an example. The 90-day fiance visa, the idea with that is that you either get married within those 90 days and then you adjust status to a spouse and get a family visa. The government could say, legislators could, I don't know if anybody who's even thought about it, legislators could say, oh, that 90-day visa, if folks are are fiancés, they should be able to just stay here indefinitely. Unlikely that's going to happen, but that would be one where the status of a special visa, if changed, could make that kind of difference.
Okay, those are the only questions we have at the moment. Thank you for the responses.
You're welcome. So I want to say that something that a lot of people don't understand is that for many immigrants, there is no line to get in. And the terms that get used of illegal, unlawful, undocumented, they make a difference. Right for their family, but have no choice but to do something that is considered against the law. And for asylum seekers, that crossing of the border, technically without a visa, is unlawful, but they're doing the only thing they can to enter the legal process of applying for asylum. And so they do have authorization to be here as soon as that application is filed. There's one more question.
Actually, we have two more questions. What accommodations are being made for LGBTQ refugees, immigrants, and asylum seekers?
Under asylum law practice, many folks who are LGBTQ are granted asylum. Again, it's an uncertain process, and the asylum officers or the immigration judges who make the decision, there are widely varying statistics on how many people get granted asylum, from 2% in some courts to 90% in others. Yes, that wide of a variation. So someone who is leaving a country where their government cannot or will not protect them because of the group that they're in, have a basis to apply for asylum.
Okay, we have one more question about the legislators. Could legislators change humanitarian parole to permanent status?
The idea of humanitarian parole is simply to grant an exception so that, I'll give you an example of folks who want humanitarian parole. And these are families where a spouse has been deported and there are children. This can be very hard on children. There are children facing major medical needs, surgeries and treatments for cancer, for example. And I've met some of these families. And there's a spouse that's waiting and waiting and waiting. There's a limit. There's a bar on when they can re-enter the United States, and they ask for humanitarian parole. It's been rarely granted to these families. But the idea is with humanitarian parole is that it's an exception to the law as it stands. But people who enter with humanitarian parole may qualify for other categories of immigration, and then that could get them into a permanent situation. And let me just say one thing again that I hope you've all heard. Spouses and parents of citizens can be deported. They are every day. And often there are 3-year or 10-year bars for their reentry. And in some cases, there is no legal option to return to the United States unless there is humanitarian parole.
Okay, I have no more questions at this time. I think it's back to Pastor Ross.
Yes, thank you very much, Pastor Linda, for helping us to connect sacred stories from various faith traditions to modern migration stories and for reviewing those definitions. I find that's always helpful to revisit the different categories and definitions around migration. So now we will take a 5-minute break, during which we will share on screen information from Hello Neighbor, another local organization, which is helping to resettle refugees. And then as we return from the break, we will hear the story of Nurul Haq Fazli, Refugee Employment Specialist with JFCS's Refugee and Immigrant Services. He will share about his experiences in Afghanistan and the path that brought him to Pittsburgh. So once again, we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll see you back here very shortly.
Hi everyone, this is Sloan Davidson, founder and CEO of Hello Neighbor. I'm so excited to share that Hello Neighbor has received our first federal contract and will start directly resettling refugees, special immigrant visa holders, and immigrants in Pittsburgh and across Allegheny County starting almost immediately. We have partnered with the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants and are so honored to join their well-respected agency. As one of only 4 resettlement agencies in the Pittsburgh area, Hello Neighbor will begin supporting new refugee arrivals from the moment they step off the plane in Pittsburgh, helping them with housing, employment, enrolling in schools and English classes, accessing healthcare, basic needs, and so much more. Since Hello Neighbor was founded in 2017, we have focused 100% of our efforts on refugees and immigrants that have been in Pittsburgh between 6 months to 5 years. This resettlement opportunity means that we will begin supporting refugees on day 1 when they first arrive in Pittsburgh. Over the next 12 months, we hope to resettle 100 refugees, and these will be from countries of origin that many of our Pittsburgh refugee families already come from, including Bhutan, Myanmar, Syria, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and other countries. That also includes 50 special immigrant visa holders, and these are the Afghans that you've likely heard about in the news that worked with the U.S. military and are resettling here in our community. And also, we will have up to 100 Afghan humanitarian parolees, and these are the amazing Afghans that are likely on U.S. Army bases all around the country and looking to rebuild their lives here at home. The responsibility of resettling these new arrivals, our newest neighbors, to our great city and into our communities is one that we will take on with the same heart, compassion, dignity, and respect that we bring to all of our programs. Our family services programs will continue to serve as additional post-resettlement support after an individual or family's first 90 days, providing support systems and resources that show our refugee and immigrant neighbors that they are not alone as they rebuild their lives in our beautiful city. To be clear, this won't be easy. We are hiring to fill out this new department. We will be organizing volunteer and community support teams in a way that we never have before. We will be asking for in-kind donations like we never have asked before, and we will also be asking for your financial support. I truly hope you will join our efforts. Together, we have made incredible strides in creating a more welcoming Pittsburgh for our refugee and immigrant neighbors, and this is truly just the beginning. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne Smith Tapia. I'm the Director of Refugee and Immigrant Services at JFCS, and we do refugee resettlement, and we also serve the immigrant population that lives in Pittsburgh. So we work with immigrants and also refugees. And you want me to start with the presentation first, and then we wait for Fazli?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so let me see. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me one moment. I find the presentation. So I hope that you can see it. So I'm just going to share a little overview of refugee resettlement with all of you. So first, I'm going to start with the definition of refugee. Refugee is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their home country of origin due of very good reasons of being persecuted by their race, religion, nationality, or to belong to a specific social group or political group. That means like in order to become a refugee, you have to prove that your life is in danger. Around the world, there are 68.2 million people that are displaced. That means that due to conflicts or like civil wars, internal conflicts, and also natural disasters, people have to leave their homes. People that are displaced sometimes move within their home country, so they don't have the possibility to move to a second country. Refugees, at this moment, there are 25.4 million of refugees that have to leave their home country and they relocate to a second country. And there are 1.2 million that are in the process of being resettled. So if you see that figure, only a very small portion of all of those 62 million classify as refugees. And if you see it from a global perspective, United States, it's number 17 in resettling refugees. That means like most of the refugees around the world are hosted by low-income countries. So Turkey, if you see Colombia, Pakistan, Uganda, are the countries that host most of the refugees around the world. So United States is not really, not even top 10 of refugees of the countries doing refugee resettlement. And this increase the humanitarian crisis, because if the countries that are the poorest are the ones helping the most vulnerable, that means that we are not really targeting this problem in the best way. But there are many research studies that show that global and local benefits of doing refugee resettlement. Only in the United States, refugees and asylees contribute many billions of dollars in our local economies. They pay, of course, they receive a lot of benefits when they get here to the United States, but when they live long enough in the United States, they pay billions of dollars in taxes. So it's always they are contributing more than the money that the government invests on them. So when a refugee is leaving their country, they have three options. One is to voluntarily go back to their home country if it's safe enough. The second option is to integrate in their second host country, which means, like, for instance, if a refugee escapes Syria and moves to Turkey, they have the option to integrate in Turkey and stay in Turkey and start their new lives there. The third option is, while they are in Turkey, they applied for refugee resettlement. And that means that they start a long process to be resettled in a third country that in our case will be the United States. When they decide to start the refugee resettlement process, many organizations are involved. So they have to apply to the United Nations, and the United Nations start the process of vetting and interviewing them to make sure that their reasons to apply for refugee status are valid. Then they involve the Department of State, the FBI, and other agencies, interview and do a lot of, fingerprints, background checks, and many processes to make sure that all of the refugees that are coming into the United States never committed a crime against the international law or the United States law. So even if people have contradictory stories from something that they told one person compared to the information that told to another person, that's going to disqualify them as becoming refugees. So when all of this process happened, our national agency that is highest start the process of assigning refugees to different local resettlement agencies around the nation. HIAS is one of 8 national agencies that partner with the Department of State to do refugee resettlement. And then when all of this process has been done, we are notified of the refugees that are coming to Pittsburgh. So when that happens, we start our process to welcoming them here. So this is something that I already tell. So the refugees flee, they have to go to an interview, the vetting, they prepare to relocate, then arrive to the United States, and then hopefully with our support and the support of their community, they thrive. This process can take a minimum of 2 years, and it can take up to 10 years for some people that they have to live in second countries or in refugee camps. And JFCS, in order for them, for us to provide support, we have different departments that all of them work with different groups and populations around the region. My department is Refugee and Immigrant Services, so we provide all of the support that they need, but we also connect them with our legal department and also with the Career Development Center, with the food pantry. So we, within JFCS, provide very comprehensive support, but we also work with partners. Our goal with refugee resettlement is to support them they are not, of course, from the United States, so they don't know how everything works here. So we are their support system to guide them through their new life. But we also advocate for quality and culturally relevant services for them. So that means that sometimes when we see that school districts, for instance, don't provide interpretation services for the families, we make sure to advocate on behalf and with our families and parents to make sure that those services are provided. And we also partner with service providers and the community to make immigrant inclusion a priority. So we really believe like welcoming immigrants and refugees to our region, it brings a lot of good things for our community, our economy, our cultural life. So we are always involved in initiatives that aims to improve immigrant inclusion in the region. So our services, we have a very holistic and sustainable approach to do refugee resettlement. It starts from the day before even arrive, so from day 0 or prior to initial resettlement, and then up to 5 years or longer. So as soon as we receive notification that a family is coming or an individual is coming to Pittsburgh, we will start preparations to make sure that we find housing, all of the basic needs that they need. So everything is ready when we are able to pick them up at the airport. And we provide housing, furniture, food. We connect them with all of the resources that they need. We help them enroll in food stamps, public benefits. We help them to get social security cards, state ID cards. We enroll them in English as a second language classes. And this is kind of like the core services that we are providing for 0 to 90 days. The first 3 months of refugee resettlement are critical because that's the months that we are with them most of the time, guiding them. We do cultural orientations, we do bus trainings, we teach them how to go to the store and buy groceries. We teach them many things that we take for granted, but they really need in order to be self-sufficient and thrive. After that, 90 days and 3 months. So we also start preparing them to find employment. So we have a very strong team that partners with companies and different employers to connect refugees with employment opportunities. So we do job readiness trainings. We help them apply and interview to different positions, and we guarantee that they have employment based on the skill set, language, ability, and also their interest. We also provide ongoing support to kids and youth. We have after-school programs, we have mentoring, and we also have future readiness options. And we also have additional support that is, anything that they need. If they have problems with housing, with their landlords, they have problems with their jobs or accessing to transportation, whatever the need is, we are there to provide support after they are already been here for a little bit. So this is one of our programs that provides long-term support, and it's a partnership with other organizations. And we are very successful in the work that we provide. So we have served 3,000 individuals that are part of the refugee resettlement process. And we have provided secure jobs in 80% of the cases. So that's pretty good. And then from those, 81% have stayed in their same jobs for months. And so we are really successful also in allowing refugees and help refugees to understand how to navigate our systems in a sustainable way, so they are being more autonomous in the way that they, start navigating the region on their own. So this is the ongoing needs, and I'm going to stay a little bit on this one to tell you more about what is happening with the refugees from Afghanistan. So it has always been a big concern to find safe and affordable housing for refugees. Also to involve community members in the work that we do, and funding to support our programs, and also find employment opportunities. With the refugee crisis in Afghanistan, something that has happened is the process that I explained to you and how refugees arrived to Pittsburgh. We have received, in the past, we had a month or sometimes more than 1 month to know when a family was coming. So if a family was coming at the beginning of December, we knew probably by the end of October or beginning of October. So we have little more than a month to prepare and secure all of the things that they needed in order to start a new life. Now, with the crisis in Afghanistan, we have hours to prepare. So we have had cases when we are notified at 9 a.m. that a family is arriving to the airport at 8 p.m. So if you can imagine, we cannot really find a permanent home for this family, or furniture, or many of the basic things that they need. So we have to have an alternative plan, an emergency plan, to be able to secure a temporary safe home for them, and so they feel safe and that they have the support of everyone here in the region. So that has been a very big challenge for us, that families are coming with very short notice. And another big challenge that we have had experience is before the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, we knew which families were coming, and we knew a little bit more of their information. And that helped us a lot to prepare, because for instance, we knew that it was a mom and a dad and 5 kids. And we knew, for instance, if dad had a disability or a problem that impede, for instance, his employment. So if he wasn't able to work, we knew when we had information from them that allow us to really assess what type of a specific support that family needed, and we plan accordingly. So if that, for instance, the main person in that family that was the most employable is not really able to work, so we need to create a plan for when they arrive, they are going to know that we understand their needs and we are preparing according to that. With the Afghan refugees that are arriving, we don't know much information. Sometimes we only have date of births. Sometimes we only have a name of the principal applicants, one person in the family, and the number of people in the family. So sometimes we have just that 10 people are arriving and we don't really know much about them. So that really complicates a little bit more of our work, because it delays how efficient and how soon we can provide the services to that family. And another kind of challenge that we are seeing is that also connect with housing. Families are coming and they are large families, and that it's it's great that families have a lot of kids that are going to grow up here and are going to be safe and have a better future. But in terms of housing, we need larger homes, but they are not going to have the resources to pay for a larger home. So we need to find affordable housing that are large homes, but that they can afford. So that's also been a challenge for us. Regarding employment, it has been good. It has been good. We have received a lot of support from different companies, and Fazli can speak more into that. But many people are interested in hiring refugees from Afghanistan. Many people also have a lot of preconceptions and thinking that all of the refugees that are coming from Afghanistan know English, and it's really a mix. Some of them, at least one person in the family, know a little bit of English, but not all of them speak English. So we are really trying to connect with different companies and people that want to hire refugees, and also teach them and guide them through the process that immigrants, also refugees from Afghanistan, also are going to need a little bit of support to get more confident in the English language and learn a little bit more of English while they are working and they are living in the region. So I'm going to close with this slide and ways to help. So at this moment, as I was mentioning, we have received a lot of support from the community, and we are very grateful for that. We have received over 300 applications to people from the community that wants to volunteer with us, and we are working very hard to do the trainings and complete the clearances for them to support our work. If people want to continue, if they want to volunteer with us, they can go to our website and register as volunteers, and we will guide them through the process. Another way to help is to host a family. We are going for the first time because of this crisis. We are trying to find alternative ways to address the housing issues. So if people have a private space in their home that has a private entrance, bathroom, kitchen, and rooms for families to stay, we coordinate with them, do training, we do background checks, and they will be able to become hosts for refugee families. Something that we need is for the homes to be in Allegheny County, because we don't have the capacity to travel beyond Allegheny County to provide the services that we need to provide. You can also partner with us. We're going to start a new model of community sponsorship to partner with a community faith-based organization or community groups that are already organized to help us do resettlement with us. So that means that before all of the core services that I explained to you before, like pick up the family at the airport, provide support to them, enroll them in benefits, and take them to doctor's appointments, all of that, we as a resettlement agency, we do. Now we are going to start this new grant. That means that we're going to partner with community organizations to do all of these core services together. So a group of faith-based organizations partner with us, and we do all those things together. So volunteers from the group can go to the airport and pick up the family, and they can help us enrolling the family to the school, to ESL classes. They will help us taking the family to doctor's appointments, to grocery shopping. This approach is very popular in other countries, and the United States is moving towards that model. It has a lot of benefits because it really starts from the beginning to tell immigrant families that there is a community that is going to support them from the get-go. We as a staff, we cannot become the refugees' friends. We are a paid staff that we provide services for them, but we cannot be, their friends. So with the community sponsorship and with this partnership, we are telling refugees since the get-go that they are going to have a group, a community that are going to support them from first day of arrival. So how this model works is that we pair one refugee family with one community group, and we work together for that family to be successful and included in our community. The other two ways that you can help us with is advocating, is telling your representatives and people in their community the importance of doing refugee resettlement and the importance of including refugees and immigrants in our region. And the last way to help is to donate money that support our work. So that's very good because when you donate, even it's in-kind donations or you make a monetary donation, those things we dedicate directly to support refugee families. So I'm going to stop, and I see that there are some questions in the chat.
There are a couple of questions. The first question is that someone says, I live in Westmoreland County and have space available in my home. Whom should I work with if I were interested in being a host?
Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot work with counties that are not in Allegheny County. As I mentioned, this is going to be a challenge for us because we have, not enough capacity to travel, and we will have to travel during a week, probably 4 to 5 times.
Do you know of any organizations in Westmoreland County that are doing similar work?
No, I don't know, and I don't think that there are refugee resettlement agencies in Westmoreland County.
Okay. Are there any current opportunities for advocacy?
Yes, so for advocacy, it's and I can share with you some of the links that our national agency has in their website. At the moment, it's to reach out to your representatives and tell them how important it is to invest money in refugee resettlement and in programs that support the work that we are doing so we can have more access to resources, for instance, housing, and refugees can benefit from those fundings. So advocacy, it's important just to reach out to your representatives to tell that Afghan refugees and refugees from all over the world need more support from the government, and they need more access to more resources.
Okay, those are the questions we have at the moment.
Excuse me. May I offer one small answer? Church World Service is offering a model for sponsoring refugees for groups that are at a distance from a refugee resettlement agency. So I have the link for some training they're doing, and that'll be shared later.
Okay, and Sister Janice, you had a question? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I got unmuted. I just wanted to tell the person from Westmoreland County that I work with 2 organizations in Westmoreland County that are really trying to make Westmoreland County welcoming and diverse. One of them is associated with the community action of Westmoreland County. So either you can email me at Casa San Jose, or you can search community action in Westmoreland County. The other one is the food bank in Westmoreland County. They're focusing on outreach to Latino immigrants in Westmoreland County. So both of those agencies are trying real hard.
Okay, and the next question is probably for Pastor Linda. Can our Lutheran Synod accept donations for JFCS's work?
I do not know, although our treasurer is good at forwarding things.
Okay, and there is in the chat information about a new, from Yvonne Smith Tapia, about the new initiative from Biden's government. So you can go to that link to get more information.
Yeah, and this is related with what Sister Janice was mentioning, other people were mentioning that now, because the government understands that the Afghanistan humanitarian crisis is really important for all of us to address. They understand that the work that resettlement agencies are doing is very located to specific regions. So with this new initiative, they are allowing other groups to support refugees without being a resettlement agency. Becoming a resettlement agency is very, very difficult and complicated. So with this initiative, people can start supporting refugees in different areas, which is going to be very positive.
Okay, that's the questions for the moment. Thank you very much for the answers.
Okay, and welcome Nurulhaq Fazli, excuse me, refugee employment specialist with JFCS as well. We want to make sure you get your time. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you as well. Good morning, everyone. Do you hear me? I don't know what.
Yes, we can hear you first.
Okay, just as this is Nurul. For the last 2-3 years, I'm involved with JFCS, helping people coming from different countries in Pittsburgh. I myself, with my family, came in Pittsburgh in 2016 as part of SIV, a special immigrant visa, because of my affiliation with the US government in Afghanistan. I was eligible in 2016 to come with my family from Afghanistan. And I chose Pittsburgh as the first place as my home at that time. While I was in Afghanistan, I worked for US government in different projects, as including US consulate, US embassy, and some part of it, US military, different projects in Afghanistan. We all have work in human rights, women's rights, and also freedom of speech and freedom of media in Afghanistan. So it was, then why I came here, that's maybe would be a question for everyone that's who is in this meeting. You know, that's always everyone is thinking about safety, about something good for the family. And that time, if that happened to me, I thought a lot, so that the final conclusion was to take a journey and to go somewhere to be safe and not to worry about all the crazy things happening in the country. And I decided to take my kids. I had 2 kids in that time. Now I have 4 kids. So yeah, we came and we migrated to Pittsburgh. And the journey when I came in, you know, is it's not easy to start a new life, a new country. Always there are some difficulties that you have to face, and you have to have the expectation that how you are going to deal a new country. That has happened to me. And so definitely I had some challenges, some problem in the beginning, but I never disappointed. I knew it. I knew this is the part of the transition. But I can tell you, not everyone has the same understanding, and especially people coming right now from Afghanistan. They're living from a very desperate situation, and they're looking for a better future here. And when right now the situation, some of them are in military camp, and some of them when they come here, honestly, because of the number of people increase significantly, you know that. And I think not only in Pittsburgh, so in all over the country in United States, I think the quality of services is a thing that to be considered. We are receiving many families from Afghanistan at this time, and that's when I talk to them, I feel it. I feel it from when they talk. That's how kind of they are disconnected from their homeland, and now they cannot really adjust quickly here. But all this transition and transportation and how they transported from Afghanistan up to here, that was when they tell me, believe me, is kind of scary. So like they put 800 or something like that people in military plane, and they went to Qatar. And then one of them told me when plane was landed in Qatar, and it was in an airport for 6 hours, and the engine of plane was shut down. And you know that how the weather is hot in Qatar. So 6 hours with no water, with no food, inside the middle thing, and for 800 people, all doors and windows are closed, and you think how that is hard. So they took some videos and they showed me that it was unbelievable. So like elderly people and kids, they were like Thursday, and they just, some of them, they really went to unconsciousness. So their journey when they start this currently is started from the extreme hardship way. And some of them, they made it all the way here home, and we are happy. It's an honor. We as GFCS and as Avon mentioned, we do our best to help them, and we use all the resources we have available in our agency, and with support of community, help them and welcome them as much as possible. But still, there's a need for bigger community welcoming, and these people need to be welcome and to be supported. I, as an employment team, I can tell you the biggest challenge is majority of these new people are coming. They have a skill, they have profession, they're hardworking people. As I talked to them, one of them yesterday, he said, I'm willing to take any job, but he doesn't speak the language. So that's the situation. And most employers, they want somebody to speak the language. So that's something, and we are trying to talk with the community, with the employer. So we work with the people to teach them English. But in the meantime, so they need to have a job. The job is not only for surviving financially, the job is also give them some relief mentally, psychologically, that they are now in a country and they welcome and they are home, they have a job, and they feel home. So this is something really we are working. Yvonne mentioned that advocacy, this is really part of ongoing advocacy, and want everyone to help us in this process. So yeah, this is just, I mentioned from my history and end up with this most current client. I really love to answer if you have any question about, in general, about the process, current clients, or if you're interested to learn about my journey or anything, I would be happy to answer. I don't know about my time limit, but I want to give everyone to ask question.
We don't have any questions yet. We'll wait just a minute and see if anyone shares a question in the chat.
Perhaps perhaps a question that was posed earlier about not because of your status of coming from Afghanistan, but your work with employment. There was a question earlier for people who have come on a work visa and then have lost that employment and now are without a visa. And the question was actually from the perspective of employers. Can employers find immigrants who need jobs in order to remain in the United States with a new job that'll get them a work visa?
But we only, our organization, especially our team and employment team, our clients, they come, either they have SIV, refugee status. Now we have APA, humanitarian parole. And if someone comes with the work visa, that would be a different status. So they come a different direction. And so ideally, maybe Yvonne can answer this question. But most of our clients that I'm working, I have experience. So they have SIV, either come from Afghanistan and Iraq, or they have refugee status, they came from refugee camp. So they really don't have that issue. The only thing sometimes we have a problem, and right now when we are working with our legal department to find a way, because when they come refugees, or even now the AP, all these people coming from Afghanistan, they have a work permit. The government gives them work permit. The work permit expires in 1 year. So when they start working, as part of the hiring process, the employer gets the work permit expiration date. When it expires, and then they notify a month the employer, either you present new work permit or you will lose your job. We have 2-3 cases at this time like that. We are working to resolve, but really it's kind of legal issues that when we want to renew the work permit, it takes forever. It takes 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. And by an employer really they are not flexible on this part. They don't want to give any extra time for client to extend the job. Even we submitted a proof of renewal things, but they don't really want, and so some of our clients are almost going to lose their job. So we have this problem about work permit, and I hope our legal department, I already talked to them, and they're really working hard to find a better way if something happens to find a solution. About work visa, this is, I know, is a challenge if they expire. So the employer will terminate the contract, and the person has to renew it. But the renewing process, I know, is a very lengthy process. But we don't have, our team don't have that. Those type of clients.
And I want to clarify, thank you, Fazli, that's perfect. And just to summarize, it's because we have a specific contracts with the government that limit us to only provide services in our refugee department to people that are classified as refugees. So we have other programs like ISAC that provide support to any immigrant regardless of their immigration status. But our refugee department, unfortunately, it's limited to the supports that we can provide to people, because we have to prove to the government that the money and the services that we are providing are for refugees that are coming from the refugee resettlement path, from the special immigrant visas, as Fazli explained, and also for humanitarian priorities from Afghanistan. If people from other immigration status are looking for employment, even if they have other, depending on their immigration status, we connect them through ISAC, or we connect them with our legal department for them to find out better ways to find employment or adjust their status.
Okay, there's two more questions. I'm going to put them together. Fazli, I think you said that you chose to come to Pittsburgh, and the question is, how did you come to Pittsburgh, or why Pittsburgh? And the second one is, how is it for your children to come to a new country?
Yes, that's a question. Now, while I was in embassy, while I was in Afghanistan, I really knew some state, to be honest with you. I knew about most people, my friends, they had either go to Virginia, California, New York. These are the typical states names that people know. Okay, let's go California. And I was one of those person that I requested to go to California at that time. And but I always, when I do something, when I travel something, I do some research. I was in a Google Earth research about the states, cities in Pittsburgh. There's a website, it compares the cities and the state in terms of the cost of living, education, lots of life aspect. Then I come across with Pittsburgh, and then I compare Pittsburgh with Orange County or Los Angeles, which
we lost your voice. We're not hearing you, Fazli. Chris, can we do something? We've lost the voice.
And then,
back.
Then I changed my mind. I decided to come to Pittsburgh. So I can tell you to answer is I chose it because of my own research. And I thought that Pittsburgh is more livable for me at the beginning to start my new life in new country. That was the whole purpose. About my kids, honestly, they were excited. They were happy. They adjusted so quickly. They learned the language in 3 months, and they become like American kids in 3 months. They language, the food. My daughters then start loving this McDonald's, the food, and they start having all the candies they hear, and they adjusted very quickly, surprisingly. Not surprisingly, because the kids, they adjust so quickly, and my wife also, at the beginning, it was very hard for her to adjust because she was not used to live in such a place, and she used to live in a lot more in community and social life with families, mom, siblings, ours. So our life is still in Afghanistan is different. So women always come together, they talk, they drink tea. So either they my house or next house. So there's always together like a social life. But when she came here, she was the only person, no families, no relatives, just nobody. She was really depressed, and she was asking always to go back home. But now, after a while, she's okay. Now she speaks the language. She got her driving license, and she's okay now. She's thankful that we are here.
Okay, and there was one other question about making donations, and Yvonne Smith-Tapia has put the answer into the chat. So if you would look at that, because we need to move on to the next part of the program. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Fazli, for sharing your experience and your family's story with us. Thank you, Ms. Smith-Tapia, for sharing the work of Jewish Family and Community Services. We encourage everyone to connect further with them if you would like to support. At this time, we'll take another 5-minute break. And we'll include information from Bethany Christian Services, which has recently been welcomed into a partnership with Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service to resettle refugees in the Pittsburgh area. And then as we return from the break, we'll see a brief video from Casa San Jose, and then welcome their speakers, Sister Janice Vanderneck and William Reeves. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Ya llevo más de 3 meses sin trabajar y uno no está en su país, es poco difícil porque pagamos renta de todo y más que yo tengo mis 2 hijos. Le agradezco mucho a ustedes que están haciendo ese gran esfuerzo y más la ayuda que yo recibí del dinero y yo pago renta, luz, gas y le agradezco mucho a ustedes, que Dios les ayude. Gracias.
Bueno, pues primeramente, gracias. Yo creo que va a caer de mucha ayuda porque realmente la situación no está tan buena para nosotros, especialmente los migrantes. No trabajamos, entonces es una ayuda muy especial. Realmente muchas gracias por el apoyo a la sociedad que estamos aquí, especial porque esto se enfoca más en las personas que somos inmigrantes. Un agradecimiento. Que Dios los bendiga.
De mucha bendición que Dios me ha dado, ¿verdad? Esta es una bendición para mí, porque sí estamos debiendo 2 meses de renta y todo eso, y yo soy madre soltera, y sí, de verdad que es una bendición de Dios, ¿verdad? Y le doy gracias mucho a Dios y a ustedes que están ayudándonos a nosotros latinos, ¿verdad?
Pues esto, bendito, primeramente gracias a Dios, ¿va? Y de segundo, pues gracias a ustedes aquí de Casa San José por esta ayuda. Es muy bonito recibir algo así de su parte y bueno, muchas gracias.
Porque es una ayuda muy grande, ya que hemos pasado casi por 6 semanas sin trabajar y 6 semanas aislados prácticamente. En lo personal, muy agradecido con Casa San José y sobre todo con Laura, porque ella fue una de las personas que se contactó con mi esposa cuando yo estuve detenido en migración, y agradecerle porque su amabilidad, su atención y sobre todo su insistencia ante las personas del consejo para que pudieran aprobar el crédito para poder pagar mi fianza.
Muchísimas gracias a la gente que nos ha ayudado, que nos está apoyando ahorita, porque la verdad veo la situación muy difícil ahora más, porque no puede la gente salir a trabajar, no puede uno pagar sus rentas.
Por lo que estamos cruzando debido a la pandemia, viene a ser de mucha ayuda, ya que en mi caso ya casi son 3 meses sin trabajo.
Bueno, yo principalmente darle gracias a Dios por el apoyo que nos están dando y a la organización San José y a los donantes que en gran parte nos ayudan porque la situación está muy difícil.
Que pues Dios los siga bendiciendo y que gracias por ayudar a las personas que lo necesitan. Y nada, gracias, estoy muy agradecida.
Pues que Dios me las bendiga y estoy muy agradecida con ustedes y pues me imagino que las demás personas están muy agradecidas con ustedes. Gracias y les animo que sigan apoyándolos.
Mucha ayuda de verdad para mí, para mi familia, para mi hijo, para la comida, para todo me va a servir. Muchas gracias a Casa San José, de verdad, esto me va a servir de mucho.
Those are just a few of our local neighbors who have been helped by Casa San Jose. At this time, we are pleased to welcome Founding Director and current Director of Civic Engagement, Sister Janice Vanderneck, and Community Policy Organizer, William Billy Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Is Billy on? He is? Okay. Thank you so much for welcoming us to this event today. And it's always a welcome opportunity to be able to speak with groups about the immigrant population with which we work at Casa San Jose. Obviously, you heard everyone speaking in Spanish. Our client population is primarily Spanish speakers, but also includes some Brazilians who speak Portuguese. And then the Latino population also includes folks whose primary language is an indigenous language. We have numerous clients in that position. I myself have been working with Latino in Pittsburgh since 2003. At that time, I worked with the Diocese of Pittsburgh in Latino social ministry. Since 2003, we've seen tremendous growth of the Latino population in our local area, as well as changes. Originally, when I began the work, the low-income Spanish-speaking only clients were mostly Mexicans who crossed over the border without inspection by a border agent. That's the process that results in what our government calls illegal aliens. And that's because there was no way for them to get into the country legally unless they had a relative, close relative here in the country to petition for them. And at that time, as there has been for decades, there were a large number of persons who also were bilingual, speaking English, who have positions in the universities and research and so on. Over the years since 2003, we have had a great pivot in the folks that are coming, and it really started probably when 2014, when we had the large numbers of what we call children, minors below the age of 18, coming to the border to present themselves to the immigration officials without any adult companion. Sometimes they would bring their younger brothers and sisters in tow. And they were coming from primarily Central American countries. And then you may remember that families began to come, the entire family. And again, Central American countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras. And these folks, again, were not choosing to cross without inspection by an immigration official, although that does still happen. The folks that were coming were presenting themselves to the officials at the ports of entry across the bridge from Mexico and asking for the opportunity to pursue asylum. So the folks that we have had coming are primarily asylum seekers. I'm going to pass to Billy now because Billy's going to use our PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, sister. Great to see so many people here today wanting to learn how to get involved and wanting to learn the effort how to help our immigrant and refugee communities here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. So my name is Billy Reeves. I'm the community policy organizer with Casa San Jose. I've been with Casa for a little over a year at this point. Started as a little intern, and I've been blessed with the opportunity to join this wonderful organization and work on advocating for the community in multiple statewide campaigns and national campaigns advocating for accessibility for our community here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. So here at Casa San Jose, you can go to the next slide. We're a community resource center that advocates for and empowers Latinos by promoting integration and self-sufficiency. This is our mission and our vision. Here with this, we want to empower our community to be self-sufficient. We want them to be able to integrate into society here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. That's why a lot of our services that we provide here at Casa San Jose directly are linked to that and directly linked to enabling our community to be able to function by themselves. But when they first come here, there's a lot of barriers that are in place. And because of that, that is why we provide the services that we do to break those barriers and basically to enable our community to be self-sufficient here. You can go to the next slide. So although our main offices here in Beachview, we have multiple satellite offices. These include an office in Washington County. In Washington County, we have one in Mooncrest, one in Ambridge, and one in East Liberty. So we have 4 satellite offices, including, and then our main office here in Beachview. So throughout Pennsylvania, we service thousands of we've served thousands of immigrants throughout the region. This ranges from Southwestern all the way up to Central Western Pennsylvania. We work with community members all the way from Lawrence County down to Washington County. Although the vast majority of our clients and community members are undocumented, we also do work, especially up in Lawrence County, with a lot of Puerto Rican community members immigrated here after Hurricane Maria in 2018, that post period. So we've done a lot of work up there as well. Go to the next slide. Okay, so this is one of our satellite offices in East Liberty. Ruth Farrell is our office coordinator for the East Liberty office. This was our first satellite office, correct, sister?
Yes.
Yes, this was our first satellite office in East Liberty. If you want to add something on East Liberty, because I wasn't there prior to the acquisition of this satellite office. If you would like to add something, sister, about the East Liberty office.
Oh, I've found, well, as I said, I started this work in 2003 because it was a faith-based group that saw the need. Actually, the Latino people were seeking a church where faith was celebrated in Spanish, and they found their way to, at that time, St. Hyacinth Church, where the Mass was being celebrated in Spanish. That was right in the heart of Oakland, in South Oakland. And soon after, the folks at East Liberty Presbyterian Church reached out to us and said, what can we do to help? We really want to support the work. The Lutheran ministries, especially Reverend Linda Theophilus, the first church to welcome our office was a Lutheran church in Brookline. They offered us space and didn't charge rent. So faith-based organizations have just a great impact on the progress we're being able to make with welcoming immigrants.
Thank you, sister. So as our office is in Ambridge, you'll see the same trend with our Mooncrest office and our Washington office. The trend with these three and East Liberty office as well, they're basically satellite locations which allow us to handle cases outside of the immediate Pittsburgh region. Like I said, we work with multiple community members outside of Pittsburgh, all the way to Washington County, all the way up to Lawrence. Especially in Beaver County, we have a lot of community members that we work with in Beaver and Butler County as well. So that is the exact reason why we have these satellite offices, especially for our employees, our Casa San Jose staff. It can be a bit of a trek to basically only have our Beachview office and have to service community members all the way out in these other regions. And besides kind of just connecting community members with social services, we'll also provide food. And I'll get more into that as well. And in addition to, especially if someone's having a family and they need, let's say, supplies for their newborn, let's say diapers, such as that, these satellite locations enable us to kind of limit it, kind of expand our periphery and our influence around the region to service as many community members as possible. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Sister, if you'd like to speak about our history, since you are the founding director.
Yes, founding director. As I said, it was a Lutheran church that welcomed us into their space over in Brookline, St. Mark's Evangelical Lutheran Church. There I am sitting in the office in Brookline with a couple of young people. We were studying English, I think. The Sisters of St. Joseph is my religious congregation. And they actually told me, I didn't ask. They said, you clearly have a passion for Latino people. Clearly there's a need because they're always calling you, asking for your help. So go out there and start something. But, and you don't need to earn a salary. We won't expect you to earn a salary, but equally, we're not giving you any money. So that's when I found the church to welcome us. And it started with myself and one bilingual volunteer. And today we have 20 staff people and dozens of volunteers and interns from the universities.
Yeah, speaking of interns, interns and volunteers have definitely been integral in our process to expanding. And in addition, we take every intern and volunteer under our wing to provide the best experiences possible to really open their eyes to what's going on in the Latino community here in Southwest Pennsylvania. So these are three of our top staff. Monica was the first non-sister, correct, to be a part of Casa San Jose, and she is now our wonderful executive director. Sister Janice is our director of civic engagement. Without her, Casa San Jose wouldn't be here. And Sister Karen, she is in charge of all of our finances and also kind of internal affairs as well. Sebastian. So we also have 17 other employees as well. And as I just mentioned, intern and volunteers are integral in our process to basically expanding the knowledge of many Pittsburgh residents and students as well to what's going on with the Latino community. For example, this summer I'm working with CMU to possibly get an intern for a summer program where basically I would take them under my wing and demonstrate to them all of the statewide campaigns and federal campaigns, local campaigns that I'm working on to enable our community to have much more accessibility. Okay, so I guess we're doing a breakdown of Monica and sister. So Monica has been working with Casa since 2014. She started as an intern, basically rose through the ranks, as it's pretty obvious. She earned a master's degree and bachelor's degree in social work at the University of Pittsburgh. She's had numerous awards. In 2019, the Woman of Influence Award, in 2019, Cesar Chavez Community Heroes Award, and a Fellow of Lead now Pittsburgh. So, she's a household name pretty much. She's all over the place. She's really built a reputation, and many organizations around the state and the region know who Monica is and the work that we're doing here in Pittsburgh, Southwestern Pennsylvania. Sister, if you'd like to introduce yourself and the words.
Well, I just want to say that it has been just truly a revelation of the providence of God to me, how we have been blessed with all that we need to continue growing from those days when we started with just myself and one bilingual volunteer and no money, to be at the point today where we can provide all the services that we can. It's just the providence of God, I think, blessing our endeavors, because I believe we're doing what we're supposed to be doing according to God's plan.
Thank you, sister. Next slide, please. So what do we do? Our services range from basically social services to case management. I'm more of the advocacy side, and basically all of our services enable self-sufficiency for the community here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. So social services, we work with Isaac mostly in that sense. With Isaac, they will connect community members to basic services such as just receiving food. Every Wednesday we have a food. We have a food bank where basically we'll provide families with free food. That's part of our nutrition program. Basically with that, we know that fresh fruit, vegetables can be a little expensive sometimes. So, we want to enable our community to be healthy as possible. So that's why we have the nutrition programs in place every Wednesday, and we give food in that sense. With social services as well, as I mentioned, with the satellite offices, I will touch on those questions at the end. As I mentioned with the satellite offices, we, with newborns and people, community members starting new families, will provide diapers and also materials for basically build a family, whether it's carriages. Also, many community members will come to us just need beds, and so they aren't sleeping on the floor. We'll connect community members with those resources so they can have a bed. We'll also help you find houses. That also kind of works in our case management as well. So we work with about 50 to 60 cases a month. This year, with our Isaac services, this year we've serviced over 500 families, I'm pretty sure, this so far in 2021. So, but like I said, with Isaac and case manager, we'll connect them with various services. Especially with case manager, we'll also connect families who are trying to enroll their children in school. Sometimes with the language barrier, that's not always understood. For example, some youth are under the impression they have to work, whether they're 14 or 15. We have to inform that they have to go to school. So sometimes that can be a little bit of a barrier, but that's why our case management exists, so we can guide community members through those processes to understand customs here as well, and the rules and regulations that they need to follow, especially if it's just enrolling your child in school. Especially with case manager, we'll help with community members with doctor's appointments as well. Unfortunately, it's the language barrier that can limit a lot of community members from accessing services that they need. So, we'll call on behalf of doctor's offices to set up those appointments, whether it's for themselves or for their children, dentist offices, any medical office that they need to basically obtain that medical service. We'll also translate documents for them. We'll provide translation on those documents. For example, for that, we'll translate documents for them, especially legal documents as well. So advocacy-wise, I work on multiple statewide campaigns. HB 279 is a bill that would allow for undocumented residents to have access to state driver's licenses, and HB 1576 would allow for undocumented students to have access to in-state tuition. This would be if they attended a high school, secondary school, charter school, cyber charter school for at least 2 years and graduated that said program. We also protect Latino immigrants at risk of deportation, inform them of their legal rights and obligations. This is a lot of Laura's work. She will work a lot with community members that are detained with ICE and ensure that they'll be able to get out on bail. We also support Deferred Action and Childhood Arrivals Program DACA recipients. We help them with the renewal program, the renewal documents as well, to ensure that they're still receiving the benefits of that program. We participate in education, outreach, and events related to immigration reform, marches, press conferences, and presentations. I was at a press conference. I organized a press conference later last month, basically, which was around HB 1576 to allow for in-state tuition for undocumented students. This was on the Capitol steps in Harrisburg in September. Laura and I and Jenny, our Washington case manager, regional director for services. She also participated in the watch. This was in Washington, D.C. We were advocating for pathway to citizenship for DACA and TPS holders. You can move to the next slide. So what do we do? As I mentioned, a lot of the services in the prior slides. We also have extensive youth programs. These youth programs, such as Puentes hacia el Futuro, and Jóvenes con Propósito, we work with youth that are very young, all the way up till 21, I think 23. That's with Jóvenes con Propósito, but we'll provide various services to the youth to basically enable them to stay bilingual and to understand the culture here in Pittsburgh. And in addition, with the older programs, to kind of learn how to advocate for their community and become more self-sufficient. So, the purpose of these youth programs, we want to build a cultural gap between Latinx immigrants and especially with the schools. Jose is our youth specialist. You know, he'll go into the high schools to basically see what's going on, if he can help with anything that's going on with the students or the school. In addition, you know, that's why with our staff and volunteers, you know, our mission, we want to bridge the cultural gap, want to have more accessibility for our community. In addition, like I mentioned, with all our social services, we are a service coordination site for immigrants and refugees in and outside of Allegheny County and Southwestern Pennsylvania. You can move to the next slide. Yes, of course, just there.
I'm concerned that our time is going to be over because it's almost 11:40, and I wanted to have the opportunity. I'm not sure if it's in this PowerPoint to speak about regarding asylum seekers. Two things. When the people come to the southern border and ask to pursue asylum, they don't get any benefits associated with that. They simply are given permission to come up into the country and unite with family members or friends. They have to give immigration an address of where they're going to, and then they can pursue their process. As far as I know, Reverend Linda may know differently, but as far as I know, they have to get a lawyer to help them submit the application for asylum. And then the process is very delayed. It takes a long time till if they actually do get that first work authorization. And then that doesn't guarantee them being able to stay in the country, but of course it's very precious to have the work authorization. They then have to go through their whole legal process, having hearings before the judge, till the judge makes the final recommendation of whether they're approved for asylum seeking. So while they are seeking asylum, as Reverend Linda did speak to before, sometimes they just, even though it's not supposed to be done, they have to work. They have to find some kind of work to feed their family. And they come to us for a lot of the assistance in, like Billy explained, navigating systems and so on. We have found that those who are coming from the southern border in the recent 18 months or 2 years really need at times emergency housing. And so I was thrilled when a Catholic parish approached me and said, we are reorganizing our parish, taking 8 separate churches and putting them into one parish under one pastor. And so they said, we're going to have all these buildings. So they offered us a house, and we opened that up just October, at the beginning of October. We got the contract to, the rental agreement. We don't pay the parish anything. It's an on-paper thing. And we moved 6 Colombian asylum seekers in there this two Saturdays ago. And so we're just thrilled to have this opportunity. It's a temporary situation until, of course, they're all seeking work and until they can get themselves in their own apartment. They're all members of the same family. And so we have said that the limit would be 6 months that they could stay there. And we're always looking for help, teaching them English, bringing in dry goods for their needs, rice and beans, laundry supplies. We have folks teaching them how to use the bus, teaching them how to go to the grocery store and buy things that are cheaper per ounce, and what the cheaper places are to buy food. We've enrolled them in the food bank. So all of our clients need all of those services, but in this case, these clients get the added benefit of a secure place to stay while they pursue. So we are looking for anyone else who would, any other churches who would be willing to provide residences for asylum seekers. Since I've had this place, I've gotten so many requests from the immigrant serving organizations. There's also a great need out there, I'm learning, for single women escaping domestic violence with children. That's also a great need. Right now, this morning after this talk, I'm taking a mother and her 2 children in that very situation to a house of our Sisters of St. Joseph that has extra bedrooms, and they're willing to take these folks in. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm finished.
You go next slide. Okay, as I mentioned before, you know, I'm going to try to move as quickly as possible because I don't want to take up too much time. As I mentioned with our food bank, you know, this kind of ties into our nutrition program. We want to provide as much help to our community members as possible, so that's one less worry they have to worry about. And we want to provide them with feeling that, you know, because of the services we can provide, ensure that they can have food on their table. Thank you. Other services offered. So I'm just going to jump at this quick, probably take 2-3 minutes. Over the pandemic, we have provide thousands of vaccines to community members. This ranges from COVID, which is the overwhelming majority, and also now in the past month and a half, 2 months, flu vaccines as well. So every Tuesday, we have a vaccination clinic at our Beachview office from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. But prior to that, we partnered with PHTC, which is the Pittsburgh Hispanic Development Corporation, kind of down the road from our main office. We also held many vaccine clinics there as well for the greater community. There were multiple clinics where we gave vaccines to hundreds of community members. In addition, we've done vaccine clinics, as I saw Linda mentioned, some of our work in Washington County. We did vaccine clinic at Our Lady of Miraculous Medical Church. That was a couple months ago. In addition, we've done multiple vaccine clinics up in Lawrence County, in Beaver County. So, you know, kind of ranges with our satellite offices as well, because we want to provide as many vaccines as possible to the community members that we work with around Southwestern Pennsylvania. In addition, besides vaccine clinics, it's okay, you can keep on this slide. We also provide testing to community members as well, COVID-19 tests. These are all free. We partner with Curative for this effort, and we have these clinics every Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So just ensure that any community members that need or feel need to be tested for COVID-19, we can enable that to happen. Other services offered, you know, we also help with assisting in citizenship and other statuses and certifications. Like I said, like it was mentioned before, DACA. In addition, we help community members with obtaining visas and access to and from their home country. And we've also helped with covering travel expenses and other associated costs. During the pandemic, we were also providing direct cash assistance to community members as well. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So with COVID-19, you know, there was a low number of job opportunities for our clients, decreased access to resources for our clients, and increase in medical issues and needs. Especially during the pandemic, a lot of our community members lost their jobs due to the fact of COVID, especially if community members got sick and they were out for prolonged periods of time. So because of that, you know, that's why we really ramped up our food bank efforts, in addition to providing vaccines to prevent, you know, to ensure that our community members, especially the ones who are undocumented, have access to the vaccine as well. So feel free to visit our website to learn more. It's a guide to all of our staff, all the programs that we offer, the resources that we offer. In addition, it's a way to contact us. If you'd love to become a volunteer, feel free to become a volunteer. We'd love to have you join on. There's many things that volunteers can get involved with. This kind of ranges from doing more social work with our social and case management workers, in addition to advocacy. If you want to get involved in advocacy, I'm right here. Would love to have more volunteers get involved in that sense with statewide campaigns and local and federal ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any questions that we should address?
There's a question about Afghan refugees. I believe I heard that Casa San Jose is helping with this need as well. Is that correct?
Oh, I would say no, because we all our staff works with bilingual Spanish speakers. So I'm sorry, no.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there other people with questions? Everybody's ready to volunteer. Fantastic.
That's great to hear.
Well, thank you both very much for your presentation and for all you and your organization do to serve people in our local communities. We are up to the time when we were going to have general question and answer. So we can open this up also, for questions for Casa San Jose, but also for our other speakers from today. And Susan Smith, I believe, is going to facilitate those discussions.
Yep, I'm back. And again, we'd ask you to put your questions in the chat. It's just easier for us to get the questions directed. But if you have general things, that would be, or specifics. I know there were a couple of questions that were put in the chat about volunteering in Washington County, and the answers were provided in the chat. So hopefully you've seen those answers. Are there others? Oh, there is a question about the Lutheran Bible camp just north of the city of Washington. Who can the camp contact about future partnership? Oh, maybe you did. I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was Jenny at casasanjose.org.
Okay, thank you.
In addition, for anything that deals with the youth, you can contact Jose as well. So basically, you could probably CC him as well. So I'll drop his email in the chat as well. But yes, anything that deals with outside of Allegheny, Jenny has to be included in that. So contact Jenny first, but you feel free to CC Jose as well, since it's a camp that would be for our youth as well, if that is included for our youth.
Okay, other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So maybe Pastor Linda, we could move on to the ways to help.
Certainly. There, now you can see me. But I'm going to quickly put up on the screen a list of various ways of being involved. And in some ways, it's simply a compilation of what you've been hearing today. And also, I think I have the link included for how to help people who want to learn English. It's a lot of what's happening is actually through Literacy Pittsburgh. The agencies are turning to Literacy Pittsburgh, who trains people. You don't have to be a trained reading specialist or ESL teacher to make a big difference, to be a tutor in English. So what I'm going to share on the screen will also be available to send out to everyone, so that you have a compilation of ideas of what you've heard today. In summary, there are local opportunities. There's also the learn and educate component, and then the advocate component. Local opportunities to give, donate, accompany, teach, and welcome in word and deed. You want to coordinate with the local agency to match your interest and ability, obviously. And then there are some specific needs. You've heard about housing and employment, also reference to legal. Lawyers are especially needed. They don't have to be immigration lawyers. To volunteer with the legal program at Jewish Family Community Service and in a few other contexts that are doing immigration legal work. Through Bethany, we anticipate there'll be opportunities to foster children or teens. Also translators, should you happen to know Dari or Pashto, for example, but other languages are needed too. There are multiple one-time opportunities, ranging from writing a message virtually through the JFCS Pittsburgh.org website, and portals where you can find out exactly what is needed and to, in fact, purchase it. But there's so many other ways. Use your creativity and then get started. And let's not forget that another way to support literacy and orientation is through books, such as Goodnight Pittsburgh, or other children's books that teach vocabulary. Parents who don't speak English want to read to their children, are encouraged to read to their children. And if we provide books that simultaneously teach vocabulary, like ABC books, we're helping the whole family. Oh, by the way, the Goodnight Pittsburgh is really fun because it shows cultural scenes, and it's kind of an orientation to the city. Accompaniment possibilities, more than a one-time but not a long-term commitment, are diverse and again very necessary. And we'll send this out. If you have a particular skill or work in a particular area, teachers are obviously one particular area, but maybe you do something else. Your particular skill or work experience can actually be very helpful. And let's not forget that learning even a few words of another language can be a great way to extend a welcome and cultural understanding. The sheet that we're going to hand out also has contact information, ways to follow up if you want to do sponsorship but are not in Allegheny County. And to educate yourself and your community, your congregation, your organization can be tremendously important. And so just a few ideas of ways you can do that. Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service is not the only organization that's been compiling information to teach and educate. There are others. And then something different from what we've talked about today, the holiday cards for asylum seekers in detention. It can be a lifeline, a little bit of encouragement that makes all the difference in dark, dark, dark time. There are so many places where you can get further research in addition to reaching out to the local organizations. So a few links will be provided. And then let's not forget the importance of advocacy. Making sure that the Afghani people who come as humanitarian parolees and SIVs, that they are getting support so that they can get oriented, get grounded, become independent. There's advocacy needed for that. And Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service has a prepared spot where you can do that. But let's not forget, we have local people involved in advocacy, and through the Immigration Working Group, as well as folks like William Reeves with Casa San Jose, we can help you find your place. And one ecumenical and interfaith, and well, beyond that, a coalition of groups doing advocacy, the Welcome with Dignity Coalition, is hosting virtual days of action, and you can register right away. Thank you for sticking with me as I went through that quick overview, and we'll make sure this gets shared with those who've been on the call.
And Pastor Linda, we do have a question about, is there a literacy program in Westmoreland County? And I looked at the Literacy Pittsburgh locations, and there are various locations, some of them outside of Pittsburgh, by the airport and some other places. I put the link in the chat, but do you know if they're in Westmoreland County?
I've researched this, and I hope I remember correctly. I think through the Y, when I say Y, it could be YMCA or YWCA, but I think through the Y and also through the community college that there are some so the answer is yes, but I'm not sure I remember correctly what the contact is.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat at the moment. If anyone else has a question, please put it in the chat.
And yes, we'll email out that list of things to do.
I saw Mr. Reeves' hand up.
Thank you. I just want to mention we're going to be having a march in Harrisburg on December 14th. Linda, I can send you some info on this before you send it out, so you can add it. But basically, the two of the coalitions that I'm working on, the HB 1576 Ocean Equity Coalition and Driving People Forward Coalition, are coming together to have an end of the year march in Harrisburg regarding accessibility for undocumented immigrants within the colony. So, Linda, I can send you some more info.
That sounds good. And may I please just add, we've mentioned that folks do end up in detention and get deported in jails. There is a development for a private prison corporation to have immigration detention in a community northwest of State College in very rural Pennsylvania. And Billy and I are, and some other folks are trying to stay on top of what's happening with that. So that's another area of concern. If you want to know more about that, please reach out.
Are there any more questions or any other inquiries about ways to connect and help support these efforts? If not, then we are going to finish ahead of schedule today. Once again, on behalf of the Immigration Working Group of the Southwestern Pennsylvania Synod, I'd like to express our thanks and appreciation to Ms. Smith-Tapia, to Mr. Fasley, to Sister Janice Vanderneck, and to Mr. William Reeves, Billy, for taking time to be with us today and to share the work of their organizations, both JFCS and Casa San Jose. We thank all of you for being here, for your interest in learning more about how we can connect to local efforts to welcome Afghan refugees and other vulnerable migrant neighbors. We hope that this will be just a starting point for new connections and conversations and perhaps growing partnerships as we seek to make Pittsburgh and its area surrounding a welcoming, safe, and equitable place for all. I did note the note in the chat. Yes, we will try to send this information out to those who have participated. Thank you very much for being here. And we are going to close with a video testimony from Mohammed, who tells his story through Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. Thank you once again for being here. Let us go in peace to love and serve your neighbor. Thanks be to God.
I was a university lecturer there, and I experienced the Taliban regime back for 5 years. And when I was a high school student, by coming second under Taliban, So I remind back my future and what will happen to my life, because that time I was young. And now I'm a father. I have the responsibility of my kids. I didn't want to put my kids in trouble, so I decided to come to America and to find a better future for my kids and for myself. I was teaching English. I got my master in ELT, English language teaching. And right now, by the time I leave to Afghanistan, I was doing my PhD in instructional technology. I got scholarship from the government of the Afghanistan. So since Afghanistan government has collapsed, so there was no chance for me to extend and to pursue my PhD. No, it was really difficult. I tried to bring my family. I'm father of 5 kids. All of them live back there. So I tried to bring them. So crossing and entering to the airport was like a rocket science job, or not for me and even for everyone. So only young and energetic people who could do and to cross the river while I was entering to the airport. My kids were outside the small river, but I could not help them to bring with myself. So it was very, very difficult. The Taliban regime was like a kind of dark moments for all Afghan people. So none of Afghan people they wants to experience second time. So everyone rushed to the airport. The journey was the saddest moment in my life, but I have never imagined. So I was in Malaysia, was busy with my PhD. I got a phone from my wife. That's one of my daughter who has problem of heart hole. So by the time I came, everything quickly has changed. So it was a military flight. 500 people in a military airplane. Went from Kabul to the Doha. We were there for one night or shelter. It was like, I can say, thousands of people in such a small. The weather was very hot. Actually, no one is safe in Afghanistan. So, like my wife is she has a master's degree, so it is difficult for her to stay at home. That's if they were safe, then I wouldn't also safe there. I would not come here. So no, I don't think so. For us, like though we came through very tough situation, through difficult way here. So for the first time, when we came to the Virginia, it was night, almost 4 in the morning. So we direct went to sleep. When we wake up around 7:30, when we came outside, we saw, oh my God, it's like a heaven. All of the people like smile with me, and they given moral support to me, and they supported us, and they allowed to have food, everything. This is the thing that we wanted. So that's why I want to come and help here as you did for me. It is the best way to help others rather than yourself, because we are human beings. We need to help others. This is helping others is a part of our culture. We have some part, we are sharing some cultures together. So that's why I want to help here.